Well, last night, despite Elon Musk putting $25 million to back the conservative, the liberal judge won the race. That's right. Yeah. Suck it, Elon. Now you only have $340 billion. What are you going to buy with that, dumbass?
Elon Musk is selling buyer's remorse.
And they just have to say thumbs up and hold a picture of Judge Schimel. And that's it. And you get $20. It's pretty easy. It's easy money. So
in Wisconsin is generally decided by 20,000 votes. This was a blowout. This was a big turnout election. This is not just your normal, odd year, off year election. There was a turnout of 2.4 million voters. And the conservative candidate, who, by the way, Brad Schimel, is a former attorney general of the state of Wisconsin. He is a good candidate for the Republicans and for the conservatives. He lost by 10 points to Susan Crawford after Elon Musk dumps in $26 million.
But the turnout was so high. It was people coming out to say what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing is not supported.
And we're not talking about the Wisconsin Supreme Court spending. We're talking about the full heel turn.
I'm Little Demmie, by the way, and I'm joined as usual by Uncle Sam.
Most Americans who think Elon Musk went nuts think it happened in 2025 or in 2024, but it actually happened in 2020.
Well, I think he's changed a lot. I think COVID was a real COVID changed a lot of people, didn't it? It sort of made them radicalized in a lot of ways about the government. And he particularly was already sort of anti-regulatory, anti-union, anti-get in my way. And then he felt that the government tried to stop him, from keeping factories open and everything else. And on some level, he has a little bit of a point, but he takes it to the extreme.
The government had ordered Musk to close his Tesla factories in California.
I mean, he was pissed that his factories were kind of forced to close, right?
Yes, ultimately, yes. That's the thing. He wanted them there, and he wanted them working. He thought it was an existential crisis if Tesla didn't succeed. He really, for the world, for all of us. And then it got weird.
Free America now. Give people their freedom back. Hospitals in California have been half empty this whole time. Now give people back their freedom.
Musk told his employees that he intended to defy orders and go to work.
CEO Elon Musk tweeted, "I will be on the line with everyone else. If anyone is arrested, I ask that it only be me."
His brain broke in the direction of right-wingers who were loudly opposing the shutdowns. And once he started siding with them over those complaints, he found himself sympathizing with their broader concerns about a woke mind virus and that they were being mocked and shadow banned and generally disrespected.
I think COVID was a real moment for him, that a lot of people got radicalized during COVID, the vaccine stuff. He for some reason, he got pulled into that whole anti-vax kind of thing, or questioning the vax. And then he got into ivermectin. And we had an interview during that period where he just went off the rails. And he had never done that, I have to say, in an interview for sure, where he threatened to leave the interview because I doubted his intelligence on COVID. And I was like, I just don't think you know what you're talking about. And that offended him greatly.
Then he got left out of an EV summit in 2021.
Biden did not invite him to a car confab, electric car confab. He had all the big ones. And I got to say, he is the pioneer of that, right? He was the pioneer of that. And he wasn't invited, and he was so mad not to be invited. He was like a little much. I deserve to be there. And that's where he turned on Biden. And I remember calling someone from the Biden administration. I was like, you should have invited him. They're like, they didn't because of the union issues. That was what was the problem there. Because it's not a unionized shop, Tesla isn't. And he was furious about that. It was fascinating to me. I'm like, what do you care? And he was like, I deserve to be there. So to sum it up, I think he's become more radicalized. I think he's changed.
And he made his heel turn in 2022, buying up Twitter from January to October and announcing in May that he was switching to the Republican Party. Musk claimed that the Democratic Party had, quote, become the party of division and hate. I found the announcement weird because he wasn't a politician, so it wasn't a John Kennedy-style party defection. It looked like a money-motivated attempt to get maggots back on Twitter because many maggots were angry about Twitter banning Trump after January 6th. But the following years showed the heel turn was much bigger and not primarily about money. To be clear, a lot of Elon's moves in government have been blatant corruption.
There's an NBC story yesterday that's really good that lists all of the various oversight things Elon's dealing with right now, from the SEC to all the various agencies, and how he is financially, I think he's also lost his mind, but he's financially motivated, incentivized to try to help Trump.
How could he not have foreseen what aligning yourself with Donald Trump would do to his brand?
Because he's benefiting from other things. Like, look, these new auto tariffs benefit Tesla.
Right.
Just so it's the only company that gets benefited. Nobody else does, just Tesla. And so, he's got more space contracts for Starlink. The government is the biggest buyer of things. And so what does he need the rest of us lousy people when he's got Trump to give him contracts? So, the government, that's where all tech is moving for, because why do you rob banks? That's where the money is. Why do you suck up to government? Because that's where the money is. And so even as he talks about cutting, he's benefiting enormously, and also by getting rid of the people that were investigating some of his problems.
Tesla has a case that's working its way through the court system in Wisconsin.
There are a staggering 12 agencies where Elon has a conflict. 12 agencies where either he or Trump have kneecapped their ability to continue investigating him. The FAA begun doing its mass layoffs. Hundreds of employees were fired. SpaceX engineers will help make air travel safer. Elon's own private company, where he profits off of, is there to swoop in. Remember, too, that the FAA had several open investigations into Tesla, and the FAA had recently ordered SpaceX to carry out a formal investigation. Those investigations will now go away, and the fines will be eliminated. He started his Doge commission at USAID. Well, the USAID Inspector General had already initiated a probe into Starlink satellite terminals in Russia-Ukraine war. That Inspector General was fired, and the investigation was shut down. Or how about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, another early Elon Doge target? Consumers had submitted over 300 complaints about Tesla to the CFPB. Trump decided to fire CFPB Director Rohit Chopra. The CFPB's Washington headquarters was then closed, and staff and contractors were told that they couldn't perform any more tasks. Musk himself tweeted, "Delete CFPB," less than a week after the agency finalized a rule that could put his planned collaboration with Visa to offer a real-time payment system on the platform into the agency's crosshair. Or how about the Department of Labor, which oversees the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, also oversees the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, all of which had over a dozen open investigations into Tesla and SpaceX regarding alleged unfair labor practices, safety violations, and discriminatory work practices. Trump fired the Department of Labor Inspector General, fired the chair of the NLRB, blocked their ability to rule on cases, gutted the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs via executive order, which in turn prevented the investigation's findings about Tesla from being made public, and, just for good measure, fired 2 of the 3 Democratic commissioners on the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The EPA had multiple lawsuits open against Tesla. Trump fired the Inspector General there. The FEC was set to rule on a number of complaints, so Trump illegally removed the FEC chair from her post. The Department of Interior runs the Fish and Wildlife Service, which Musk has repeatedly clashed with. Trump fired the DOI Inspector General. The DOJ filed a lawsuit in 2023 against SpaceX, and investigations into whether Tesla had been candid. Trump has since remade the DOJ in his image. The SEC sued Twitter in January. Trump has since pushed out the SEC chair.
And he also wasn't perfect before the pandemic.
Well, there's certainly multiple Elon Musk, multiple personalities, whether it's the hardcore engineering mode, but also there's almost a demon mode. Demon mode is something that happened to his father as well. It's almost like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where a cloud comes over and he gets into a trance and he can just be tough. In a cold way. He never gets really angry, never gets that physical, but coldly brutal to people. And he almost doesn't remember afterwards what he's done.
There was always an element of these dank memes, boob and penis jokes, ha-ha, boobs, And I remember thinking when he did it a couple of times, God, this guy is in his 40s. What is he doing? This is kind of sad. Like, how sad? That kind of thing. But it was a minor part of his personality.
Prefrontal cortex developed.
Yeah, I was like, whatever, it's so juvenile, but okay.
Musk has been a heavy user for years, putting out classic tweets like, "I put the art in farts," 69 days after 420 again, haha. And technically, alcohol is a solution.
And he was a little bit of a narcissist. He was a little bit juvenile. I didn't see this coming.
Workers at his factories complain of immense pressure and unrealistic deadlines. A report a few years ago on his Tesla factory in Fremont, California found employees complaining that style and speed trumped safety. and that workers there have been sliced by machinery, crushed by forklifts, burned in electrical explosions, and sprayed with molten metal. He's been like this at every company, as this early employee at SpaceX will attest.
It was not unusual to have a phone call from him at 3 a.m. On your cell phone. You better, by God, have that next to your bed to answer. He's just gone into yelling fits against me, telling me I'm stupid and I don't know what I'm talking about. And I've seen him do it to other very intelligent people.
Oh, one night in South Texas at the launch pad of SpaceX. It's Friday night at 10 p.m., and yet he just reams out this guy named Andy, who was in charge of the launch pad site. And he orders a surge. He orders 100 people to come in from different parts of SpaceX, from Florida, California, so they can all work for 24 hours a day getting this thing done, even though there was no need.
But he's so much worse now.
Yeah, but like when he does the thing with the hand, do you think that's
No, I think he's a troll. I think he's a troll. That's what I think he was doing there. I think whatever it takes, he'll do to bother people. I've been in rooms many times where he goes, what if I say this? What do you think people will do? And then I'll do this, and I'll pretend I didn't do this. Like he games this out, right? And so I think he knew precisely what that messaging was. I think he thinks people should joke about it more. And what's the difference? He doesn't feel people's long-time pain. And so I think you don't have to be anti-Semitic to be a complete and a troll. And I think he knew what he was doing. And he knew it would affect people, and he knew it would trigger people, and he did it twice for that reason.
He even challenged Mark Zuckerberg to a cage fight, to which Zuckerberg replied, "Send me location." And may I suggest to both of them, interior volcano.
But if you got one question out, what would that first question be?
What happened to you? Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Like this. I was just talking to a bunch of people who knew him before. I'm here in San Francisco right now, and this is a surprise to many of us, and I don't say he was a nice person before. None of these people are nice, Brian. They aren't. Some of them are. Reed Hoffman's a lovely person. Always has been, always will be a lovely person. Tim Cook's a very nice guy. Always had. Satya Nadella's a nice guy. Like, despite all the other things, there's certain people are often like they were. The transformation of this guy, and believe me, he wasn't a lovely guy, but he wasn't this guy. Like, it's really something really profound. Always had problems, always had issues, always had oddnesses and stuff like that. But this is a real transformation of someone moving down towards Howard Hughes land.
Boosting a transphobic documentary saying every parent should watch this, responding interesting to a tweet reading blacks kill each other, whites kill themselves, and boosting this Office meme, falsely implying there had been a cover-up about Pizzagate. I didn't think it was possible, but it genuinely makes me miss the man who once posted, "Send me your dankest memes," and this picture of a turtle on wheels with the message, "Science has gone too far."
Tim Cook's willing to have a debate. Mark Cuban clearly is willing to have, he's over on Twitter. Basically he makes all these really good arguments, and then Elon responds, "You're a moron."
And you posted that he was a traitor. Well, why do that?
Well, I think somebody should care about the interests of the United States above the interests of another country. And if they don't, they're a traitor.
Yeah, but he's a decorated veteran, a former astronaut, a sitting U.S. senator.
That doesn't mean it's okay for him to put the interests of another country above America.
I had interviewed Yoel Roth, who was at Trust and Safety at Twitter. He stayed there after Elon came on, and I've interviewed him many times. And I put him on stage at one of the recent Code conferences, and it was right near, she had plenty of time to respond. Linda Yaccarino, so remember she had that meltdown on stage.
Oh yeah.
He said exactly what he's always said, which is, and he's a very calm and clear person. But when he left Twitter, after agreeing to stay because he cared about trust and safety, and he was assured by Elon that he cared about trust and safety, and of course it became immediately obvious he didn't. He called him a pedophile, essentially, right? He made the insinuation that he was a pedophile. And then Yoel had death threats. He had to leave his house. He had to do, there were a lot of repercussions. And then still, after this stage appearance, he said that Yoel was evil, I've never seen pure evil like this. I was like, I don't know, I got a list of pure evil. I'm pretty sure this guy's not on it.
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's gonna try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f yourself. But go f yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is.
Wow. It is hard to say what's most embarrassing there. The fact that the world's richest man is playing the "you're not breaking up with me, I'm breaking up with you" card, or that he's doing it to confused silence while wearing a jacket from Ralph Lauren's midlife crisis collection. He's clearly going for bad boy there, but ended up looking more like Red Pill Chip from Rescue Rangers. Now, that clip actually made the rounds, but for my money, this exchange a few seconds later is even better.
No, actually, what this advertising boycott is going to do, it's going to kill the company.
I've heard a lot of people who think Elon Musk showed up to Wisconsin because he thought it would help Brad Schimel. These people think Elon was too stupid to realize that his in-person appearance would hurt Schimel.
This guy has to hurry up and make the robot version of himself because it can't possibly have less charisma than the real thing. I mean, I'm no political expert, but maybe Elon should stop doing in-person campaign events. It's like watching an accountant at open mic night.
He was the central figure by his own volition. He goes to Green Bay on Sunday. By the way, we talk kind of number crunching. You know Wisconsin better than anyone, Charlie. But I noticed that in Brown County, the county spanning Green Bay, not only did he lose, but that was one of the biggest swings from the 2024 election towards this election, towards the left.
Yeah, he backfired. Susan Crawford was probably going to be the favorite no matter what. Right. But I think Elon was a net negative on this, and even including the $20 million that he put in and the $2 million bribes that he gave to random college Republican twinks.
Oh, yeah, and I'm a little bit surprised that they had him show up, honestly.
If you talk privately to Republicans, they believe a lot of that was anti-Elon Musk when he's out there jumping around on stage with a cheese head. Nobody was buying that act, and they did feel like he stepped in with $20 million of his own money to try and buy that seat, and it backfired.
For him to show up in Wisconsin as he did and make himself such an easy target as a person, I think probably outweighed the money that he put in.
He also went to Wisconsin, which may honestly have backfired.
Yeah, I think it may have backfired. Look, I think if there's one thing we should be taking away from the results in Wisconsin and the polling that we have from Wisconsin and national, if you are a Republican candidate running in a swing state, you don't want Elon Musk anywhere near you. Yes, maybe you like the money, but you do not want his presence in your state. Why is that? Elon Musk, simply put, is an unpopular guy. He is political poison. Look in Wisconsin, his net favorable rating, minus 12 points, 12 points underwater. That is an even worse number when you look nationally. Look at that. It's minus 17 points. So if there's one big lesson to take away from Wisconsin is Elon Musk does not help Republicans when he shows up. If anything, the data suggests that he hurts them. Republicans, stay clear of Elon Musk if you want to win in a swing state, at least in terms of his physical appearance in your state.
Elon Musk is not very good at politics. The level of ignorance and tone deafness when it comes to politics is extraordinary, which makes him dangerous for Republicans. He's not charismatic. He thinks he's charismatic. I mean, he thinks he's a rock star. He shows up, on stage and he's throwing, cheese heads into the crowd and everything. But the fact is that he doesn't have the political gene. He doesn't have the political instinct.
The Republican Party has a Musk problem because they want that money. But if part of the deal is that Musk wants to show up and be on the stage and put the cheese hat on and whatever, to your point, Will, does that just, counteract and end up in a worse spot for them?
I always knew one day I'd go head to head with a South African party ghost who's worth $400 billion and yet can't seem to hire one person who might tell him, hey, maybe don't wear the cheese head.
Maybe our side won because George Soros wasn't out here jumping around, fucking humiliating himself.
Wearing a cheese hat.
I'm like, do you, and that's, I feel bad. I don't feel bad, but it's just sort of interesting that he's going to be around because he has nothing else but this. He's going to be in every state. It's going to be, he will not learn anything from this because he's not capable of it. So we're just going to have to see his influence. And my hope is that a lot of people will see this sweaty loser and understand this is not a compelling representative for conservatives or whatever he thinks he represents.
I think Elon knew Schimel was going to lose, especially if Elon showed up.
Put in mind, if you look at the betting market odds So if you look at sort of the poly market or Kalshi, like the betting markets, it varies between 85% and 90% probability of loss for Justice Schimel.
That's what we're seeing throughout these special elections, and probably what we'll see in the midterms is that people who are engaged politically are going to vote Democratic, and they're coming out.
I think Schimel winning was a distant second priority, and the first priority was all about Elon.
All right, I love you guys too.
Being licked up and down all day. That's one of their favorite things.
Love you too.
He loves it. He loves drama. He loves being the epic hero.
He was described as a real-life Iron Man. It's a comparison that he even welcomed, cameoing as himself in Iron Man 2.
Creating a narrative around himself, you know, the Iron Man narrative, which he tried desperately to get into that movie. And they like the attention they get and the fanboyness of it. And because the press, which used to be incredibly slavish in terms of kissing them up and down, they don't get that. They want to create fan bases because they want to bypass it. They've tried to do their own media things, like I think Andreessen Horowitz did whatever the thing they did, it failed. Future, I guess, whatever. They try that, and then they try investing. It's not a very lucrative thing, media. And now they're just, you know, going on Twitter like Bill Ackman or anybody, just trying to create their own profile, or the All In podcast or whatever. You know, this is their way of communicating.
My view on Elon is that I feel like his brain has been poisoned by the platform he bought. Like, I think that he has become this, and like you said, I'm sure that the flashes of it were always there, but he's gone down this rabbit hole, and I was just like, I saw some of the tweets over even last weekend, and now he's crazy. Just like full replacement theory. And you know, voter fraud in the last election. Like, it's just,
you know, if he was a guy at a bar, you just move a seat down, right? You know, I think the only reason you pay attention to him is he makes a spectacle of himself on a platform he had to buy in order to get attention. And of course, all the stories of him. There's a really good book out by Zoe Schiffer, and the beginning of it is him forcing the tech people to make it so that everybody got him in their feed. You know. Talk about a desperate need for love.
I'm actually making history tonight as the first person with Asperger's to host SNL.
You hear him talking about his depression? He says, I've never been diagnosed as bipolar, but that might be the case. As with Asperger's, there's so many different forms of autism spectrum disorder, but there's some elements in his case where you see he doesn't have that empathy that his brother Kimball has.
He's always been a troubled person, and he doesn't hide it. Like, if you go back and look at some New York Times stories, he's sort of very emotional around when Tesla was in big trouble. You know, he's always, and he's talked about it. Compared to a lot of people, he talks about his mental health struggles. He has several times. He said he's manic depressive, I think, at one point. He doesn't hide his unhappiness, and he never was. And that made him unlike people, because a lot of them feel robotic. And Elon always felt emotional all the time. You know, you could see, you know, or I ran into him at a party once, and I go, how's it going? He goes, I'm really lonely. And I was like, oh, okay, TMI.
With 9
okay.
children.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, I didn't know what to say. I was like, oh, well, okay. All right, then I'll get a drink over here. What did you say? It was so
Maybe if you had hugged him. Maybe if you'd hugged him in that moment, we wouldn't be here right now, Kara.
No, thank you. You know, he wasn't dating someone, I think, or it was weird. It was weird. I remember I felt bad for him.
In terms of why Elon has switched sides and why he's like moving over to the right is because he wants to be pet, and those people are willing to pet him, and that's really at the end of the day what he's looking for.
Yeah, he does. I mean, my image of him that was really sad was the Mar-a-Lago New Year's Eve thing.
Yeah.
So he's there in sort of an ill-fitting tuxedo. It wasn't even a good tuxedo. I was like, oh, can't you afford a nice tuxedo? You could probably have someone sew it on you. You're so rich, right? Like little tiny children do it, maybe. And he was there by himself, and his mother might have been with him, whatever. At Mar-a-Lago, you're the richest man in the world, and you're so lonely. This is where you are, right? I almost feel, you know, in many ways, look, I hate to pay a compliment to Trump, but he seems to have a family that likes him, kind of. It looks like it, right? He seems to, his granddaughter does it. I don't think that's fake. I don't think that's fake. And I think he has had children, and obviously Elon has children, but only that one child he carries around like a doll was there, and that's I think it's really a strange.
Yeah.
And he's not supposed to, by the way, show this kid in public, just so you're aware. They have an agreement where they're not supposed to show this kid in public, and he doesn't anyway. But he's not there with all of his children. His children don't like him, right? Especially Vivian, who just did a wonderful interview in Teen Vogue. I thought, oh my God, you're the richest man in the world, and here you are. That's how lonely you are. There's no friends, no your new friends who are there because you're rich. It was very sad to me.
Elon Musk is jealous of Trump.
I suspect behind the scenes, he doesn't think much of Trump. I mean, I've heard him say it, years ago, I can manipulate it, essentially.
Elon is smarter and much more accomplished, but Trump is much luckier and has failed upward his entire life.
And unlike Trump, he's a very successful businessman. Trump is a terrible business person, and Musk isn't.
Elon thought he could be the leader for the biggest cult in history, but it can't be him. Elon saw the world as Milhouses and Nelsons. In his eyes, Democrats are Milhouse, the nice guy who finishes last, and Republicans are Nelson, who's mean but gets what he wants. But Elon's just a very sensitive guy who doesn't have the toughness of a Nelson.
You see signs of it in some of the tweets and the political move to the right. But you also see the struggle to harness the demons.
How are you running your other businesses?
With great difficulty. Yeah, I mean...
But there's no turning back, you're saying?
You had Tim Waltz, who's a huge jerk, running around on stage with a Tesla stock price, where the stock price had gone in half. And he was overjoyed. What an evil thing to do. What a creep, what a jerk. Like, who derives joy from that?
He's not very good in person with people who are holding him accountable.
He couldn't look you in the eye.
He couldn't look me in the eye.
Couldn't look you in the eye.
No, and he became increasingly uncomfortable and tense over the conversation because I was just, Tim, the questions were not hard.
The Great Replacement Theory is a neo-Nazi trope. It's in the Neo-Nazi Manifesto. It's in the Turner Diaries. It's referenced by the Buffalo mass shooter.
The questions were, where's the piece of paper? Why did you say this? Quote, these are your own words. He's this very important, gazillionaire, and who talks shit about me all the time. But yet, face to face, when I was this far from him as I am to this camera, he could not tell me how he felt about me. He couldn't defend himself. But afterwards, he goes on to Twitter and encourages his, apologists to attack me. He is a keyboard warrior. He is an internet troll now, and he is afraid to confront me or talk to me man to man.
He keeps complaining about empathy, a word I never hear out of other maggots. Democrats are showing empathy to his victims, such as fired federal workers, but don't have any left for Elon himself.
I always thought the left, or the Democrats, were supposed to be the party of empathy, the party of caring, and yet they're burning down cars, they're firebombing dealerships,
isn't it supposed to be the party that they claim to be the party of empathy?
And Elon never says he's getting that empathy from the maggots because he knows they think empathy is a type of Argentinian pastry. He's also really awkward.
So it's like, I can't walk past the TV without seeing a Tesla on fire. What's going on? Some people, it's like, listen, I understand if you don't want to buy our product, but you don't have to burn it down. That's a bit unreasonable, this is psycho. Stop being psycho.
Yes, Trump himself is also incredibly awkward, but Elon is so awkward he makes Ron DeSantis look like Shaft. Plus, Elon supported Meatball Ron in the primaries and even hosted his super awkward campaign opener on Twitter Spaces. And Elon's not as comfortable lying as E.D. Vance. He gets extra awkward when he knows he's doing something wrong.
You know, the reason for the checks is that it's really just to get attention. It's like we need to get attention, and it's somewhat inevitably when I do these things, the sort of it causes the legacy media to like kind of lose their minds, and then they'll run it on every news channel, and I'm like, I couldn't pay them it would cost like 10 times more, or to get the kind of coverage that we get. So
2 checks for $1 million each in appreciation for you taking the time to vote. This is super important. Now, in the immediate aftermath of Musk announcing his payout scheme, the Wisconsin Democrats released a statement accusing Musk of committing a, quote, blatant felony. And so right after that was released, Musk then deleted his initial tweet, posting this one instead. On Sunday night, I will give a talk in Wisconsin to clarify a previous post. Entrance is limited to those who have signed the petition in opposition to activist judges.
Well, and like I said, this is just helpful for getting attention, and then it's kind of fun to see the legacy media lose their minds over it too.
And he's not finding that much. What he's proving, by the way, is the government's kind of efficient. Like, he's not finding much, right? He's really not.
The fact that they have to lie about these cuts and say that they've cut $8 billion where there's only $8 million, when you have to start lying about cuts that Joe Biden already made during his administration, and then you're taking credit for them during Trump's administration, that's kind of a testament to the fact that, to your exact point, government is running pretty efficiently right now.
Juanita Broderick, who of course supports Donald Trump, she posted a text block that said, "Why haven't there been any arrests for the fraud and kickbacks Elon and Doge have found?" MAGA activists. One of them is Matt Muncy, who said, "I've been screaming this question from the rooftops. It is absurd that we have found all this fraud and everybody keeps saying follow the money and you'll find the thief, but we're not hearing anything. It's crickets." MAGA influencer Mickey Larson Olsen said, "Pam Bondi's too busy trying to find the nearest camera." Because we're dealing with checks and money that goes directly into people's bank accounts, that's like a 30-second investigation. You either find out whose name is on the account, or if that person is in fact deceased and somebody is using it for fraud, you find out who the beneficiaries of the account are. You don't need to spend months building a case. You've got your case. Arrest them and charge them, but nothing has happened. Not a single one of these so-called fraudsters has been arrested. There hasn't been a single investigation launched.
He even talked about gerrymandering, another topic maggots almost never discuss with ordinary voters.
If the Supreme Court is able to redraw the districts, they will gerrymander the districts and deprive Wisconsin of 2 House seats on the Republican side.
Elon stinks at lying, so he made a claim he couldn't possibly believe because Wisconsin is insanely gerrymandered by Republicans.
Wisconsin is what's known in the political science literature as a democracy desert. That is a place where gerrymandering of electoral boundaries and voter suppression laws have all but smothered the small d democratic process, and that started back in 2010. Republicans took control of the governorship as well as the state senate and assembly. It was a huge deal because it gave the GOP almost limitless power to redraw the state's political district, redrawing multiple districts to favor Republicans. Before the 2011 redraw, it was a competitive district. In 2011, District 8 was redrawn to be significantly redder. Districts 21 and 22. Before 2011, each of these purple districts contained a liberal urban metro. Republicans packed Racine and Kenosha into one new district. Democrats won in 2018, 53% of votes cast for the state assembly, but only got 36% of the seats. Unfortunately, things have only gotten worse. Maps are redrawn every 10 years. Republicans got to move the lines even further in their favor. In 2022, they gained 3 more state house seats.
Elon was claiming that in Brad Schimel's statewide race, Liberal Susan Crawford was favored to win, but that fair maps would have 75% of Wisconsin's U.S. House seats Republican, while gerrymandered maps would have 50% Republican. But Elon's also experiencing a problem that's common for Trump's underlings, even ones who fit in better with the Trump cult. Trump's reputation has been built up over so many years by so many fawning politicians and randos, and we've reached the point where anytime an underling does something the cult likes, almost all the credit goes to Trump. And when Trump does anything wrong, the cult assigns all blame to the underlings. So Elon's never been anywhere near as popular in the Trump cult as Trump himself. Plus, there's the issue of his unpopularity outside the cult.
I've never seen such a brand destruction as this. Yeah. This is really quite something. I don't know. I think he thinks, Elon's a massive distraction at the same time as doing significantly troubling things, right? But even North Carolinians don't like the major federal agency cuts. They don't like any of this. And so Musk is a very polarizing figure. And even though Republicans view him favorably, I suspect more and more, as you're seeing all over the place, we don't like this guy. What is he doing here? And it's not to say other presidents haven't had rich people secretly around them, but nothing like this. Not someone whose finger is in the pie so explicitly. Right. And I think people like their corruption quiet, I guess. I don't know what to say or something. But this guy is explicitly tit for tat. Let's get rid of the agencies that are investigating me in any way.
I think one of the failings Musk has is he doesn't take negative feedback very well.
And boy, is he getting negative feedback.
From Chicago to Washington, D.C. and across the U.S., people gathered Saturday to speak out against the Trump administration. They protested President Trump's key initiatives, including large-scale cuts to federal agencies.
It is described as a national day of action. Hands-off protests taking place all over the country in opposition to the actions from President Trump and Elon Musk.
There's a significant crowd spilling out of Daley Plaza and filling up the streets of Chicago. Well, it's one of hundreds taking place simultaneously nationwide.
I haven't seen a demonstration this big in Chicago ever.
Like oceans of people.
And it looks like this entire square is full.
When a protest gets too big for Daley Plaza, people stand where they can.
In the middle of a street.
This crowd stands against President Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk.
We will not be silenced. Hands off!
Hands off! A protest against the administration's actions to cut government jobs. In defiance of the Trump administration. And it's not just here in the U.S., but across Europe as well. Rallies were also held in Paris, Lisbon, London, and Lisbon. And then here in the district, more than 10,000 people traveled to the hands-off rally on the National Mall.
Frustrated with the new presidential administration.
And if anybody was slow to wake up to this authoritarian takeover, nobody's sleeping now, and nothing is going to stop the forces of democracy and freedom in America.
Protesters opposing things like cuts to the federal workforce. Some people we talked to say they traveled hundreds of miles just to be here on the National Mall Saturday to be a part of this movement in the nation's capital.
Is the Trump administration competent or incompetent at downsizing government without affecting vital services? Incompetent by a 25-point margin.
And some of his key supporters have been frustrated with him because they bought into the mission of Tesla, they bought into the mission of SpaceX, but then they see him with Twitter, now known as X, and they wonder why he's putting his time there.
It's easy to blame it on nobody likes him, which his negatives are quite high, especially with his customers. When you do things that your customers don't like, it's, the customer's always right, no matter what it is. And I don't think that the MAGA groups are not rushing to EVs. They find they're hostile to them, right? And so was Trump until just the other day when he had the car sale on the lawn of the White House. But he was hostile to electric vehicles. And so this is not a group of people that wants to buy these things. They don't even want to buy the Cybertruck, which is sort of in their genre, right? They've only sold 45,000 trucks. They were supposed to sell 250,000. They have not. And they've had to recall them all because they were badly glued, And I think the real problem with Tesla is it's a meme stock, and the reason it's as high as it is, which is 134, a PE ratio of 134, which is insane because most car companies are in the single digits. Let me say, Teslas are good cars. It's not as good as other new cars that are coming. And so there's all these new competitors now, including in China with BYD. Here, there's plenty of different competitors. They're all growing market share, and Tesla's losing it, which is a natural thing for it to happen because it was the only choice. But when you get a choice as a consumer, you want to go with the sexy BMW or the really cool Ford. Ford has several, I think it's the Mach 5, beautiful electric car. And so if you have this Tesla that looks the same year after year, and you don't like the guy, you're like, I think I'll get the cool one with the people I kind of like, or I don't care, that don't sit around and insult all manner of people that I happen to like.
It is worth noting that Elon has a large group of way too online incels who really like him. It's not 200 million, but it's big. He gets a lot of online interaction, but it's clearly not enough. Unless you're talking about Poppy and Branch, the only people who think trolls are cool are other trolls. So Elon's followers are really low quality, even more so than Trump's. But also, online socializing isn't the same thing, which is why Elon paid millions to have an in-person audience, why he was living at Mar-a-Lago in December, and why he made the Tesla employees show up and watch his stand-up.
Stop being psycho.
I think it's really important for people to find quiet in their lives in order to recharge. But one thing that I think our devices, our phones, our screens do is they make our alone time more crowded, because when we're alone, what do? We pull out our phones and we spend time in the minds and crowds of other people, which are often very anxious, often very angry, often very negative and emotional. And sometimes when we're in a crowd, what do? We feel a little bit of social anxiety, we pull out our phones and suddenly we're alone. So in a weird, almost paradoxical way, our alone time is more crowded than it used to be, and our time in crowds is more lonely than it used to be.
The dose matters. There's a difference between spending one night alone, between saying, I feel great about not being around people today, I need to recharge, and spending more time alone year after year after year and decade after decade after decade. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about a kind of overdose on solitude. And there's research suggesting that if you ask people how much time do you spend with folks and how much time do you spend alone, the people who spend more time alone tend to be much less happy. There was one study that found that a 5% reduction in socializing time reduced happiness as much as a 10% reduction in income.
Elon is actually getting the socialization drop and the income drop, so he's pretty unhappy.
Sometimes being in a state of quiet by yourself is a lovely thing. But chronic loneliness, being alone day after day, being alone more year after year, that's a real problem. That tends to correlate with much less happiness and with serious problems both for individual health and I think for community health.
I talked to a Brown University researcher and author, Mark Dunkelman. I mean, this really compelling point that if you think about it in kind of an ironic way, in the age of the phone, our families are tighter than they used to be. I text my wife all the time. People are in touch with their kids maybe more than they used to be. So that inner ring of family is very, very tight. And then you can think of an outer ring of tribe, where I'm very in touch with people who share my ideas about, aloneness or economics or politics, whether it's on Twitter or on email or via group text. So in a way, you have this weird situation where the inner ring of family is strengthened and the outer ring of tribe is strengthened. But there's a middle ring, which is the village. These are the people we live next to. They're our neighbors, the people in our towns, and we don't know them as well as we used to. And the reason I think that matters is that while family teaches us love, and while the tribe teaches us loyalty or ideology, I think the village teaches us tolerance. I think it is instructive of tolerance to be around people that you're not related to, that you disagree with about things, because you learn that you can disagree with people while still seeing them as fully human.
These in-person events are actually getting the tribe outer ring instead of the village middle ring, and Elon's family inner ring isn't great either.
I think this is, needless to say, a guy with kind of a complicated paternity history.
Is it the woman, Ashley St. Clair, who is the alleged baby mama for?
Yeah, so Ashley St. Clair is a sort of right-wing internet personality. She wrote a conservative children's book. She's kind of like just a figure. And so that's why a few months ago, I think like a lot of people, I was surprised when she posted a thing that was like, statement, yes, I had a baby with Elon Musk. No, I will not be discussing it further. And since then, what I think was initially, people were saying, why are you like putting this all out there? And they were saying, well, we can't get in touch with Elon. We got this baby. And so this has since then become kind of an ugly paternity fight. She claims Elon isn't giving her enough money to take care of the kid, which, as we know, is one of many kids he has.
I'm selling it because I need to make up for the 60% cut that Elon made to our son's child support.
What's happening with baby mama 3, Grimes?
Sort of right when Elon was taking over Doge, and she's tweeting at him, hey, Elon, why don't you, our child is having a medical emergency. I'm sorry to be tweeting this on the website you own, but this is the only way to get in touch with you.
One of the things that Claire Boucher, known as Grimes, says is you don't want to be around him when he's in demon mode. It's really frightening. I remember once late at night and Grimes was there. She leaned over to me and said, demon mode. And I didn't see it yet, but she knew it was about to happen, like somebody can feel the change in pressure And boom, about a minute later, he got really dark.
His oldest child's trans and has been speaking out against him.
Yeah, and obviously he's gotten very mad about this trans daughter of his. He got really mad at the streamer Hasan Piker, who I believe interviewed the trans daughter. And so he really has this habit, and I don't know if it's deliberate or not, of sort of playing out this family drama online.
Shit posting about them on your social media platform seems suboptimal as compared to, like, I don't know, calling a couple of the baby mamas.
I mean, you're hitting on this thing that one of the axioms of kind of the way he operates is that it's okay to be wrong, just as long as you're not confident in wrong.
And Elon was confidently wrong, but I think he's now realized that he's not going to get the love he wanted out of this. Of course, you can't just switch sides now, because Democrats would still hate him for the rest of his life. But he can fade out of the limelight like Madison Cawthorn, and let others be the current targets of Democrats' anger.
Getting the spin that Elon Musk is leaving Doge.
You technically are a special government employee, and you're supposed to be 130 days. Are you going to continue past that, or do you think that's what you're going to do? Or?
Well, I think we will have accomplished most of the work required to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion within that time frame.
So in that time frame, 130 days.
Elon Musk is calling this a 130-day tenure, and he says it's a revolution in government. He's claiming victory. He says, I did it. I helped cut the federal deficit by $1 trillion, and now with his mission accomplished, he's heading for the exits.
Hopefully he takes his fade-away strategy so he don't get subjected to more of his stand-up. This was an Elon marathon, so I'm tired of him and won't subject you to that clip for a while. If you appreciate that, please like the video. We'll probably shift to the economy, so subscribe if you want to keep up on this.